Well, Mabon on the homestead. Do we ever have a lot to talk about? I am currently chopping into a fresh brick of gorgeous Guatemalan ceremonial cacao. So excited. Because, my gosh, September, Mabon, it is literally the season of cacao for me. So good. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Melanie and I'm super jazzed to be here as always. Mabon is a pagan sabbath. Mabon is part of the wheel of the year and is the fall equinox. You have definitely celebrated sabbaths before, even if you're not pagan. All of our everyday, run-of-the-mill, westernized holidays are based off of and coincide with the correspondences, the dates, the astrological events of the wheel of the year. You've got winter solstice, Christmas, you've got Samhain, Halloween. There are a lot of parallels, so if you are new to the discussion and new to the world of sabbaths, I thoroughly welcome you in. I live in the Western Hemisphere, so obviously September is go time on the homestead. This is one of the main reasons why I love doing sabbaths on the homestead. It allows me to share with you a little bit of the perspective and maybe even get into the headspace of the pagans and the indigenous peoples who established this kind of cyclical relationship with nature and celebrated the shifts of the wheel of the year and the seasons. Truly, being on a homestead, you end up celebrating and living in alignment with the sabbaths and the wheel of the year, whether you're doing it intentionally or not. So to be aware of the wheel of the year and to be able to intentionally layer in some magical juju, as it were, into my everyday chores and activities really adds a lot of romance to my life and a lot of potency when it comes to intention setting and just my overall vibration this time of year. Because Mabon is an equinox, it actually falls between September 21st and 24th. There is a duration in which this celebration, this harvest festival energy can be observed and worked with. I'm really excited to go outside with you and get deep into some of the activities that are really alive for us on the homestead during Mabon and this fall equinox time. But before we do, I want to provide you with a little bit of context and a few correspondences that if you are not on a homestead and you don't happen to be living this lifestyle, you'll still be able to pull in facets and work with and embody this energy, really anchoring it in and hopefully allowing you to connect a little deeper with the natural cycles and the turning of the wheel of the year. If you're looking for some iconography or symbols, there is always the Horn of Plenty, which is a classic image for Mabon and harvest festivals. Things like ivy, pine cones, acorns, gourds, apples, pomegranates, dried seeds. These are all great iconography and symbols to work with and incorporate during this time of year. We all know the fall colors, and as you might have guessed it, they do align with the corresponding and associated colors to celebrate Mabon. So you've got your oranges and your browns and your nice earthy toned reds and yellows, those maroon and gold tones. Imagine looking at a canopy of beautiful leaves beginning to switch and change colors. I think one of the most strongly associated and most beautiful aspects of a harvest festival and Mabon itself would be the food. Life on the homestead in September really revolves around food. Being on a homestead any time of the year, it tends to revolve around food. At least that's why I got into homesteading. Foods that are associated with Mabon and that are really prevalent this time of year are going to be things like your storage crops, your root vegetables, onions, potatoes, carrots, squash, anything that can last the duration of the winter, whatever you're pulling out of the garden when you're starting the big harvest at the end of the summer. That, of course, is different depending what region you're in. There's always differences and variations between what is coming out of whose garden at what time, but really take that time to observe your own land. This ties into something that I refer back to on the channel so often. Whether we are discussing astrological associations or the wheel of the year and its correspondences and associations for the Sabbaths, I always really want to encourage you to check in with yourself and see what associations come up for you when you think harvest time. Those associations, the ones that hold personal stories and meaning for you, are going to hold the most power and cosmic oomph, as it were. So if you're someone who strongly associates scarecrows with the harvest season, then by all means incorporate that into your Mabon ritual, your altar, your iconography, symbolisms, even as an emoji. Do what you gotta do, but work with the associations and symbols that are alive for you, because those are in your life and in your headspace and your zeitgeist for a reason. There's power there for you to work with. This goes with whatever you're harvesting from the garden and your land right now as well. So if you don't have apples, for example, work with pears or peaches or whatever fruits might be ready for harvest during this time of year for yourself. Those are the seasonally appropriate foods to focus on. Of course, as well as wonderful foods, there are things like sunflowers or cosmos or mums that produce late into the season. So remember those flowers and those herbal allies. There are always so many delicious and beautifully powerful herbs that are coming into fruition this time of year. Associated with Mabon in particular are things like rose and thistle. You also have honeysuckle, acorns, and fern. So some of those are a little bit less herb-esque and more miscellaneous plant items, but if you feel the need or the call to incorporate them into your Mabon celebrations, by all means. Now that we have skimmed through just a few of the associations and aspects of Mabon that you might want to pull from and work with this season, let's take a look at what all of this magical juice looks like on the homestead this time of year. Harvest season is such a busy time on the homestead. Both Mother and I have businesses going and a bunch of moving parts, as well as homesteading chores, property development, the list goes on. So we are busy beavers, to say the least. The turning of the wheel of the year really represents for us a time to get serious about prepping for the winter months to come. Without a doubt, this means firewood in our world. We have lovely friends who enjoy helping us get firewood, but there is a lot of work to be done around managing firewood. Unfortunately, sometime this summer, we did end up losing this woodshed to the forest after some serious winds, so we had to reorientate it and restack all of the wood. That being said, with a chill in the air and a cup of coffee, restacking firewood can be quite romantic. It's also one of Ripley's favorite chores. We don't often cut down live trees for our firewood. Rather, we like to search out dead standing trees or trees that have fallen over in windstorms. This way, we are simply clearing up the forest and also using all of that wood that's available. Of course, it is harvest season, so on top of preparing ourselves for the winter months to come, we need to start to lay to rest the gardens. This means harvesting, and more harvesting. This time of year, we're pulling out crops that have been growing for the entire duration of summer. This includes things like leeks, beets, carrots, potatoes, those good hearty storage crops to see us through the winter months. This also means a lot of bending over, digging, dust, and awkward positions as you try and wrestle your way through and in and amongst the roots. At this point in the year, there is this feeling that comes over you where you are simply tired, but in a good way. You're tired because you've been fulfilled and busy and useful for a whole summer season. You're tired and you want to rest, not quit. It is this shift, this subtle shift, that I think really is embodied by the Sabbath Mabon. There's a gratitude that comes over you at this point, and a sense of peace as well, knowing that you did all that you could do in the summer months prior, and you're ready to slow down, be grateful for all that you have, and focus more in on preservation, fortification, and rest. With great abundance comes great responsibility and the long process of preserving the harvest. This is often referred to in homesteading communities as the burden of abundance, and it's such a privileged problem to have, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Coming up with different recipes, different preservation methods, whether that's making soups and freezing them, dehydrating, fermentation, blanching and freezing, freeze drying, the list goes on. You can really get creative, and you have to get creative in order to be able to make good use of the harvest you've worked so hard to get. The kitchen is really the hub of the homestead, and it is never more prevalent than during harvest season. There is something comforting, heartwarming, and so grounding about a good vegetable soup where you've grown all of the goods and a fresh baked loaf of sourdough bread. That is a sweet spot, and it's something that I will never, ever take for granted. I am new to making sourdough loaves, but it is quickly becoming one of my more favorite ways to observe the Sabbaths. There is something about a freshly baked loaf of sourdough bread that screams abundance and makes me feel pampered and luxuriously taken care of. So yes, Mabon is a beautiful time of year on the homestead. It's busy with a lot of chores and different moving parts and a lot of food. But in those still moments, those in-between moments, when you're out getting firewood or playing with your dog, taking a quick walk, appreciating your tomatoes and the sunflowers in the garden, watching the leaves change. It's in these moments that you can feel the change in the air, the promise of slower days to come, of cozy blankets, thick socks, warm fires, delicious soup, and as always, time spent connecting to the land and with your loved ones. At the end of the day, my go-to practice, no matter what Sabbath it is to sit and be in awe of the connection we have to the land, to nature, and how truly taken care of we are. It fills me with an overwhelming gratitude. So I hope you have an incredible Mabon. I hope you spend it with people you love. I hope you eat delicious and nutritious food. I hope you feel connected to the rhythms that are around us. And I hope to see you back here very shortly for another video. As always, my friends, may the force be with you. Bye-bye for now.